Okay, welcome back to segment 2. At the end of segment 1, we were not able to go over exercise 2. So right now, let's begin on page 112, practice 2. Okay, looks like this. Practice 2 with some verbs here. So I hope that you had a chance to fill in those blanks during the end or after the end of segment 1. Let's check together. The number 1 answer we have already. Roberto and Maya. We were watching a movie at the Rialto Theater. Rialto Theater is, I think, Los Angeles, actually. Okay, and if you notice the question next to the picture, what were you doing at 8:30 last night? Okay, so it looks like the police officer is asking different people what were they doing at 8:30 p.m. So what about Mi Young? She said, I was studying English at home last night. Good student, Mi Young. Number 3, Ciro. He said, I was driving to work. Number 4, Magda and Luis said, we were eating dinner at Kate's Kitchen restaurant. Okay, so far everyone is safe, I think. No crime. And what about number 5? Elian and Francine said, this is plural, we were attending a neighborhood watch meeting. Were, because they. Okay, number 6, Susana. This is the Spanish spelling. Suzanne is English. Suzanne is my middle name, actually. She said, I was babysitting my grandchildren at my daughter's birthday. Sorry. At my daughter's house. My eyes went below the answer. Okay. Number 7, Claudia. She said, I was baking a cake for my daughter's birthday party. Okay, so far so good, I hope. Let's go to number 8. Layla and Mark. They. Okay, this is plural. They said, we were painting the kitchen. Okay? All right, number 9, Daniel, he said what? He said, I, was visiting my friend and playing video games. So those are regular verbs. Just add ing. Okay. Were any of these verbs irregular? Did we need to change the spelling? For example, number 3, driving, drop the E, add ing. Okay, so all of these were using past continuous verb tense. So let's move on to the next page. Let's go to practice B. We see a big picture with a lot of people in the same room. And let's say the time is 7 o'clock p.m. And we have one example. What was Bill doing at 7 o'clock p.m.? He was reading. He was reading what? The newspaper. Or he was reading the newspaper at 7 o'clock p.m. Okay, what about Elisa? You tell me. Looking at this picture here, what is she doing? Looks like she is sewing or knitting. So what could we say? Elisa was sewing at 7 o'clock p.m. Okay, how about you take a moment, and if you are home, maybe someone is nearby, you could practice giving examples, making answers, using the pictures here. Or you could also call or video chat with your conversation partner. Okay, so what about John and Sandra and Isaiah, Maria, Judy, Pedro, and Beatrice? What were they doing at 7 o'clock p.m.? Sounds like a mystery crime show. Okay, so take a chance to practice a little bit. Okay, you can pause here to do that, and maybe we'll come back and check a few answers together. So what about Sandra and John? Sandra and John, what were they doing at 7 o'clock? They, which one do we say? Was or were? They were, looks like, watching TV at 7 o'clock. What about, let's see, Isaiah and Beatrice? Beatrice, what were they doing? They were playing a game. Just add ing, regular verb. What about Judy? Judy? Looks like Judy is talking on the phone. So Judy was talking on the phone at 7 o'clock. And how about Pedro? I think Pedro is also watching TV. Watching TV. Or if it's 7 o'clock last night, past tense, he was watching TV at 7 o'clock. Okay, if you see below in exercise 3, we have another communicate exercise. So I challenge you to practice with your conversation partner. Okay, now I have also given you a challenge on the board behind me. Just a little bit of homework practice. So, can you practice with your partner, interview each other, and try to ask at least 5 more questions to interview, okay? So, what were you doing? And you notice I put a blank. In 2010, for example. So you want to find out some more information about your partner's past activities. You choose the year. You may also want to practice last. What were you doing last week or last month or last year or yesterday? What were you doing yesterday? So practice answering in complete sentences. Okay, my example before, I said, yesterday I was gardening outside. Okay, what about you? Take a chance to practice and take turns asking and answering with your partner. Okay, now that's a little bit more homework practice as well as communicate exercise 3. So I will let you practice this on your own. Okay, now at this time, before we continue to lesson C, I would like to show a few examples behind me on the whiteboard. So in lesson C, we're going to talk about 2 adverbs which are commonly used with past continuous verb tense. And those 2 words are when and while. So, if you remember an adverb clause, it's a clause, which is what? A clause is a phrase which is a complete sentence containing a subject and a verb and an object. Okay, so after the clause, we see a complete idea. Now, these two words have a similar purpose, and they are to show that one past action interrupted, okay, let's say something's happening and suddenly, whoop, something interrupted the previous action. So these are adverb clauses to show that one past action interrupted another past action. So when do we use when and while? Let's focus on when first. I think you can still see it. Good. So when we use to show for the action that interrupted. So to introduce the action that interrupted the previous action. Okay, example. I was cooking when the smoke alarm went off. So let's think about that sentence. What was I doing first? Okay, I was cooking. So first I was cooking. I created some smoke. Maybe I was burning something. And then, second action, the smoke alarm went off. Okay, so I put one with I was cooking. Now, I put brackets around the clause, starting with when the smoke alarm, this is the subject, went off. This is the verb. Okay, so second action, I put a to here. Maybe it's hard to see from this point. All right. So what about the word while? When do I use while? To show the action that was happening before the interruption. To show the action that was happening before the interruption. Okay, now I think maybe you can't see that clearly. So let me hold up the whiteboard and we'll get some exercise here. Okay, while I was cooking, comma, the smoke alarm went off. While I was cooking, the smoke alarm went off. Okay, now that is basically the same sentence, only I have switched the order and I have used a different adverb. Okay, so what's my adverb? While. Now we notice that while is first in the sentence. So when that happens, I need to use a comma, right? So while I was cooking, comma, the smoke alarm went off. Okay, so we notice that in this case, while I was cooking, this is also a dependent clause, meaning it connects to the independent clause. Independent means a complete sentence. This sentence, the smoke alarm went off, can stand alone. It does not need anything else. I could, in fact, delete this part. I could delete the clause and say, the smoke alarm went off. Okay? So remember to put a comma here. All right, so in this case, what is the first action? And what is the second action? Okay, I was cooking is first, while I was cooking, and then the second one is the smoke alarm went off. So in this case, it's the same order of events, only I have switched the order. And I have used a different adverb clause word. Okay? Okay, I hope this example helps. So when and while, we're going to practice with that. Okay, now to give more examples and have a little bit more fun, I'm going to kind of play a game with you. In class before, we have played the game Two Truths and a Lie. Do you remember that? So now I would like for us to play Three Truths and Two Lies. Can you tell me which examples are not true? Okay, I'm going to read some statements for you and show you. You tell me which are true, and later I will give more details, more information about these examples. Okay, the first one. I was walking my bicycle across the street to my apartment in China, comma, when a man almost ran me over. True or false? If you notice, I have put parentheses around me because this is a separable phrasal verb. I have put the object pronoun in between, in the middle. Okay? So, I was walking my bicycle across the street to my apartment in China when a man almost ran me over. True or false? What do you think? Okay? The next example. I was working as a florist while I studied in graduate school by the San Francisco Bay. I just put abbreviation. Okay? I was working as a florist while I studied in graduate school by the San Francisco Bay. True or false? What do you think? Okay? Now, I want to point out something on this card. So you notice that I started with my past continuous tense, and I'm using the adverb while. And after while, I used past tense, while I studied in graduate school. Could I switch this? Yes, I could. Okay. While I was studying in grad school, I worked as a florist by the San Francisco Bay. So it's similar to the example I showed behind using while, okay? While I was cooking, the smoke alarm went off. Okay, so what do you think? Is this true or false? Okay, the next example. I was gardening outside yesterday when a snake suddenly appeared next to my foot. Okay, what do you think? True or false? I use the clause word when. Suddenly, when a snake, this is the subject, suddenly adverb, appeared verb, next to my foot. Okay, object phrase. What do you think? True or false? Okay, another example. I was taking a hike in Sequoia National Park when suddenly a bear appeared in my path. I was taking a hike in Sequoia National Park, this is in California, when suddenly a bear appeared in my path. True or false? What do you think? Okay, so I'm showing you some different examples with when and while, and also switching the order. Finally, we have one more example. I won $500 in a lottery at 7-Eleven when I was living in Vancouver. I won $500 in a lottery at 7-Eleven when I was living in Vancouver. True or false? What do you think? Okay, now, maybe you will be surprised. 3 of these are true statements and 2 are false. What do you think? Which ones are false? Okay, I'll give you the answer. This one is false. I have never won a lottery. Okay. Which other one is false? I tried to give a trick one. I told you that I was gardening yesterday, but this is false. I did not see a snake. Whew. Thankfully. Okay. All right, just for a little bit of fun. How did you do? Did you guess correctly? Because the other examples are true. I did see a bear about as close from here to just outside my house. Okay. I did work as a florist, and I did almost get run over by a man going very fast on his bicycle when I lived in China. Okay. All right. So I've given you a few more examples using this true false game. So we will come back after the end of segment 2 here, and let's go to another practice exercise in the book. So at this time, I will challenge you to go to your student's book and look at page 114. And you will see another cue reader right here. So how about right now, you can take a moment to pause and watch. Take advantage of this technology using your phone if you have the cue reader. And hopefully you will get some helpful information using when and while. So we will come back and we're going to check practice 2. So be ready in a moment to check.